Hello, everyone, and welcome to another webinar of our mental health series. These webinars explore various mental health topics with expert comments and tips through the lens of international students and newcomers to Canada. They were developed by the Family and Mental Health Services of Cont'd in collaboration with Orientation to Ontario and International Student Connect programs to raise awareness and provide support. My name is Nawara, and I'm the bilingual coordinator at COSTI's Orientation to Ontario and International Student Connect programs. Today's webinar is about self-care strategies to overcome stress. This webinar will help you develop the ability to recognize signs of distress within yourself and outline helpful self-care strategies. To help us understand this topic better, we have Vince Pietropaulo with us. Vince Pietropaulo is the General Manager of COSTI Family and Mental Health Services. In his current position, he has worked with ethnocultural communities in program design, development, and implementation in the areas of mental health, domestic violence, and problem gambling. Vince currently sits on the York Region Violence Against Women Coordinating Committee, Ontario Resource Group on Gambling, Ethnicity, and Culture, the North York Specialized Courts Advisory Committee, National Trauma Informed Care Project National Advisory Committee. Vince is a subject matter expert on the Immigrant and Refugee Mental Health Project. Recently, Vince designed and implemented the Refugee Mental Health Program at COSTI. Vince has presented extensively on the issue of domestic violence, men's violence, and problem gambling at conferences in the United States and Canada. He has guest lectured at York University and Rice University. Without further ado, we will now start. Thank you, Vince, for being here with us today.
Well, thank you, and thank you for the kind words, Nawara. I have the pleasure today of speaking on self-care strategies to overcome stress. Really important topic, specifically to assist and help foreign students that come to Canada for the first time as they adjust and assimilate to a new country. And we're going to look at a number of different issues. And first and foremost, we want to have a really good understanding of what stress is. We want to understand what the symptoms or indicators of stress are. And then we want to look at ways of coping with stress that are specific to students. And then we're going to understand and develop a definition of what distress is that differs from stress. And also, I'm going to share some resources that I think will be very helpful to students as they embark on their new academic journey in Canada. So we're going to start our presentation by developing a good understanding of stress. And to do that, I'm going to share with you a definition of what stress is. So stress is our body's response to pressure, often triggered when we experience something new, unexpected, or that threatens our sense of self, or when we feel we have very little control over a situation. Now, if you think back, everyone essentially is going to be exposed or has some experience that is new, something that's unexpected, or something that really challenges our ability to control an event or a situation. So imagine as a foreign student coming to a new country, looking at a situation that is fairly different culturally. There's new language and different people to meet. So we really have very little control over this situation. Everything appears new. What we do know about stress is some people handle stress better than others. And we also have to know that not all stress is bad. In small doses, we know that stress can sharpen our senses and give us bursts of energy as the body releases cortisol and adrenaline. So for instance, even though taking an exam or preparing for exam can be a very stressful experience, at the same time, our body is sharpened, our concentration is more focused, and we're less easily distracted, and we can really perform to our utmost. And again, in small doses. So that gives you a sense of what stress is. Now, when we look at indicators or at least symptoms of stress, we know that there's going to be four essential parts to stress. There are physical reactions and physical indicators. Of course, there's an emotional response or emotional indicators, cognitively, which is the way we think, perceive, and process information. And of course, we have behavioral symptoms of stress. We're going to start with physical symptoms. And often when we experience prolonged and enduring stress, what stress does, it robs us of our energy. So we may feel that our energy levels are low. We can experience headaches. Sometimes we experience stress in our GI system. So we could have an upset stomach, or we sometimes feel butterflies in our stomach. We could feel constipated, or perhaps even have diarrhea and overall feeling of nausea. These are some of the physical symptoms, as well as aches, pains, and tense muscles. As our muscles tense when we're experiencing stress, over a long period of time, of course, you'll eventually feel pain um, as you tense up your body, and you can feel very achy as well. Sometimes we feel stress in our chest and we feel that our heart beats faster, but we feel pain. And often people get panicky because it very much mimics the same kind of symptomology in heart attacks. But most often, thankfully, it's just feelings of stress. And one of the other ways that our life is interrupted and stress affects us physically is insomnia, where we have difficulty either falling asleep or we wake up and our sleep is fragmented, or often you might, in a way to avoid stress, is sleep too long. So these are some of the physical symptoms of stress. And now we're going to talk a little bit about, sorry, I'm going to continue with the physical symptoms of stress. So it affects your immune system. When you're under a lot of stress, your immune system is affected, so we can have frequent colds and be vulnerable to infections. We can lose our sexual desire and our sexual ability as well. So this we often see when people are under prolonged and enduring stress. We can feel nervous and shaky. Often we can feel ringing in the ear, and we can have cold or sweaty hands and feet. And these are all physical reactions to stress. When you're under stress, of course, you can have a dry mouth and have difficulty swallowing. We often will clench our jaw and grind our teeth. So these are all physical symptoms of stress that are indicators. Now, when we look at emotional symptoms and how we express and emote when we're under stresses, you often see when people, if you've noticed, you can feel agitated, frustrated, and mood will fluctuate. Feeling overwhelmed, like you're losing control or you need to take control of a situation, and you have difficulty relaxing or quieting your mind. You often will have racing thoughts or really negative thoughts and really affect your mood. You might develop low self-esteem because you might feel bad about yourself or a particular situation that you were involved in. You have a sense of loneliness, feelings of worthlessness, and also could feel depressed over a long period of time if the stress endures. And often a way that you know you're under severe stress is you avoid others. You avoid social situation, and there is kind of reluctance to engage, and overall you're avoiding any kind of situation that you feel makes you feel uncomfortable or agitated. Some of the cognitive symptoms are constant worrying. So you're having thoughts where you're worried. Perhaps you might be worried about your performance at school. You're worried about an exam. You're worried about family that you miss, that you don't see, that you don't have regular and ongoing contact with. Your thoughts may race and they jump one over the other, and you have a hard time slowing those thoughts down. You can become forgetful and feel and behave in disorganized ways, feeling like your life is disorganized. You become absent minded, and you really lose. This, of course, can also impair your judgment, where you're making decisions or or making options that are not necessarily helpful. And essentially, your overall thinking is pessimistic, and you're looking at things in a negative way. So you'll often see the glass really is half empty. Hard to look at the future in a bright, ambitious, and positive way, and often seemingly you'll have thoughts of negativity. So these are some of the cognitive ways or ways that our mind responds to stress. Behaviorally, some of the indications that you're under stress are you might have shifts and changes in your appetite. So either you're not eating or you're eating too much to find comfort, ways to fill a particular void. Um, what we see often in students behaviorally is they procrastinate. So when you're trying to work on an assignment, you leave it to the last minute or you avoid the assignment and you really get into that procrastination sort of way of behaving where you're not focused, organized, and you avoid the responsibilities. So you're in this kind of avoidance mode. And that includes also social situations, not only necessarily academic responsibilities. And a way to maybe cope with the stress, or at least behaviorally, you might engage and use alcohol, um, drugs, or smoking. Often, when people are under stress, they reach for cigarettes or they reach for a drink as a way to mediate or alleviate some of the emotions, some of the physical sensations. And this really governs the behavior when you're under stress. You can exhibit more nervous behaviors, and you often will see this where people are fidgeting, they may pace. So there's a sense that your body has this excess energy, and nail biting is another example. So you need that kind of physical movement, and you just can't relax. So often when you're under stress, it's the inability to relax. So these are some of the symptom clusters. So we've talked about physical, we've talked about emotional, cognitive, and these are some of the behavioral. So if you look at these signs and you notice, it doesn't necessarily mean you have a mental health disorder, but what it means is that you're under stress and all facets, behavior, cognitive, emotional, and physical, is you're starting to see changes because all aspects of self are reacting and responding to that particular stress that you're under. So now let's look, now that we understand what the definition of stress is, now that we've looked at what some of the symptoms of stress are, so you have an idea of how to actually acknowledge and understand how stress is affecting you, we're going to look at ways that we can cope with stress. And these, again, are focused on students. And one of the best ways is to manage stress is not just in the moment, but really to develop a plan of self-care. And what self-care really means is that you have intentional actions, that you are taking care of yourself in all aspects, that you ensure that if you have physical symptoms of stress, that you are caring for those physical symptoms, you're kind of mediating those physical symptoms, you're looking at the mental aspect, and you want to do some mental exercises or at least heal and take care of your spiritual and mental well-being as well as your emotional health. Now, self-care strategies are unique to every individual. There's not one prescribed way to manage stress. Everyone has their own particular likes and dislikes. And what is important is that you engage in the practices on a regular um, basis and that you engage in the activities and practices that really you enjoy. Because what that'll do is help you with motivation. Often, when you're feeling under stress, one of the challenges is that you lack that motivation. So, once you develop a self care plan, ensure that it is unique to yourself and that is one that you will enjoy activating. So, self care activities can contribute and increase your energy, it can lower your stress levels, and really improve your overall well being. So the importance of self-care and developing a self-care strategy that, of course, as we mentioned earlier, is unique to you, is that you actually treat self-care appointments as seriously as you would any work appointment or any school appointment. So as much as you will not miss a lecture or a class, I think the same has to apply when you look at a self-care appointments. And the key, of course, is that you incorporate your self-care appointments into your agenda, into your daily routine, and you take them very, very seriously because it's an important part of increasing your academic performance, increasing and maximizing your overall potential, and give you a sense of well-being. And of course, as we said earlier, if you look at stress and what stress does in making you feel like you don't have control over a situation or your life, once we develop a positive and balanced well-being, by practicing and including self-care appointments in our schedule, we'll have a better overall sense of control of our life. Starting with sleep, and as we had earlier mentioned of how important sleep is, in that we saw in the physical indicators or physical symptoms of stress that insomnia was an important feature of a physical symptoms when people are under stress. Sleep is very important. It helps to renourish, and sleeping at least 8 hours a day is really, really important. It helps you start the day. So keeping a regular routine of sleeping and waking schedule. Oftentimes, when we're under stress, it really affects our routine. So maintaining that regular sleep helps to not only nourish the body, but helps you to maintain and keep to your schedule. So reducing and not drinking drinks that contain caffeine, and especially before bedtime. So really 4 to 6 hours before you sleep, really reduce your caffeine intake. And usually the rule of thumb I think that is very helpful is drink your coffee, drink your caffeine drinks before lunch, and then really as the evening comes in, you want to eliminate any of that because they stimulate you, right? And it keeps you from feeling relaxed. You want to avoid alcohol and heavy meals before you go to sleep, and you really want to minimize noise, light, excessive hot and cold temperatures where you sleep. So again, the first part of self-care is ensuring that you're resting and you're really nourishing your body. Then again, maintaining a schedule where you eat on time, you don't skip meals, you have a balanced diet, and you resist junk food, which contains sugars. And we often, when we're under stress, you may notice that you may get cravings for foods that are high in sugar. And that's because, as we talked earlier about one of the symptoms, one of the physical symptoms of stress is that your energy level decreases. And what your body will do is crave food that is high in sugar, because we do know that sugar will boost, or caffeine. So often, when we're under stress, we tend to reach for foods in high sugar and junk food like chocolates or chocolate bars. We'll tend to eat, drink excessive coffee to boost up our energy. However, this may feel acutely better in the moment, but eventually, as the body digests and processes the sugar content, you'll start to feel low energy and tired again. The best way to overcome and counter is eating regularly, having a good balanced diet, avoiding actually sugar and flour, and opt for natural sweeteners and whole grains as they fill you, they're better for you, and again, they maintain that energy level for the full day. And also be careful. Again, we talked about emotional eating, and what emotional eating suggests is that in order to deal with the stress, whether it's the emotions or whether it's the physical symptoms, we often will reach for food as a way of comforting ourselves. And especially when people are feeling lonely, they're in a new place, one way to reconnect, to, I guess, our culturally reconnect is to reach for foods that give us comfort, is, and it can also, I think, elicit those feelings of connection. But you got to be careful, because if you overeat and you're eating for emotional reasons, it ends up having an adverse effect. So take out time, at least 30 minutes a day, 5 days a week to exercise, whether it is a long stroll um, in a natural setting like a park or the woods if you're close by, perhaps on campus. There might be walks and you might have an opportunity to look at the architecture. But if you exercise for 30 minutes a day, what that does is, again, it really reduces the stress level because it gets the blood flowing and also reduces the impact of what we talked about earlier, adrenaline and cortisol. And these are some of the hormones that when you're under stress, physiologically are released into the body. So exercise is a way of processing, is a way of managing and mitigating the effects of the hormones. And we And also what's really important is keeping a gratitude list. So one way is when we're under stress, we talked about how our thoughts can become negative, how they can become pessimistic, and we lose focus, really, of what we are grateful for. So keeping a gratitude list, things like, this is wonderful that I have an opportunity to come to a country and be able to study. Um, in a place that perhaps may be new, unknown, but I'm still able to focus and be grateful that I can accomplish perhaps my academic or life goals. There are new opportunities here, but maintaining a list that really has your blessings. And one of it could be with, even though I miss my family, it's great that with all this new technology, I can connect with them on a regular basis. And so keeping a gratitude list and reading the list on a daily basis, what it does is alert you to all the things, the good things that are in your life and ways that I think reduces the pessimistic and negative thinking. And as we speak of negative thoughts, what we want to do is transform those negative thoughts into thoughts of gratitude. So for instance, the example would be is always look at the silver lining, right? Look at within the future. Think about how things can change. So counter any negative thoughts with thoughts of gratitude. And again, focusing your attention not on the things that are not working in your life or the feelings that make you feel uneasy or lonely or sad or depressed, but focus on things that are working well in your life. And that could be a mood changer that can really, really be helpful when countering stress. And you always want to surround yourself with people who make you feel happy, people who make you laugh, people who help you in your need. So people who genuinely care. And this was a quote actually by Karl Marx. Um, and I think it's important because really often how we feel and how we see ourselves is reflected on the people that are around us. Now, this is a challenge often for foreign students because one of the challenges as they come into new academic institution, of course, is they may not know anybody. So a great way is to join clubs, to engage in sporting activities is a wonderful way to meet people. And often if you're joining a team, or if you're going to participate in a sporting activity or in a running club, for instance, the chances of you developing some kind of social connection is very good because often these are people you have something already in common with, like-minded, and more than likely people who are engaging in physical activities, in exercise, in social activities, generally are there for the same reason as a way to connect and feel better and people who are generally in a happier place. Now, social distance can exacerbate feelings of loneliness and isolation. So again, thankfully, we have technology to really reach out, and it's important to use technology, whether it's the internet, whether it's instant messaging, or whether it's FaceTime calls, to loved ones, but also to people, I think, on campus. So these are great ways. Remember that socializing is an easy way to take care of yourself. Now, find time for things you enjoy. And really, we often forget we could engage and immerse ourselves in an assignment, in our academic performance. And as we do that and really spend the majority of our time engaged in work and work functions, we often can easily be distracted and forget that what are the true pleasures that really can change our mood, can change our feelings, and can change the way we see things. So always find time in your day, fit it into your schedule to engage in one activity or eat a particular food or even just relax and watch YouTube videos as a way to really enjoy yourself and feel those emotions of joy. Now we talked about ways to cope with stress, and now we're going to go into understanding the difference between stress and distress, and we're going to define distress. Now, stress changes to distress. So ongoing chronic stress can cause or exacerbate a more serious mental health problem. And if you're under stress for a prolonged period of time and you're not managing your stress well, it eventually becomes distress. And you can have mental health issues like depression, anxiety. These are examples of when you're under stress for a long period of time that it becomes more and more difficult to counter some negative thinking, change your mood, deal with your anxiety, and eventually the distress manifests in clinical depressions, in very serious forms of anxiety. Also, what distress can lead to is cardiovascular disease, including heart disease. Often people who are distressed will suffer and eventually, if it's over a long period of time, can develop high blood pressure, leading to heart attacks and stroke. And of course, we've seen how distress, people who overeat, you can have obesity as people overeat as a way of coping and developing other eating disorders. Stress changes to distress when you start to have more serious, profound physical reactions where it disturbs the physiological changes, disturb menstrual cycles, and women may have menstrual problems. You can have serious sexual dysfunction, skin and hair problems such as acne, psoriasis, eczema, and for some, of course, permanent hair loss. You can have gastrointestinal problems such as GERD, gastritis, colitis, and of course, irritable bowel syndrome or an irritable colon, which is often associated with stress. When we move to distress, you're starting to see, as we focus on some of the issues that I'm talking about, is it starts to affect your body where you're developing very serious physical diseases and mental health issues as well. So when do you seek help? And this is really important. When stress, not managed well, becomes distressed, as you saw the different symptomology, and before that comes to bear, what you want to do is you want to learn as when do I move from getting some help? And the first thing is when you start to see your work or your school performance is severely suffering, and no matter what you do, you cannot get to that maximum potential. You're starting to use alcohol, drugs, or tobacco to deal with your stress. Your eating or sleeping habits change significantly. You don't feel you can control them. You're behaving in ways that are dangerous to yourself, including self-harming behaviors. You start to have irrational fears and severe anxiety. You have trouble getting through your daily routines and your daily responsibilities. They become a challenge, and you're not motivated, and you're withdrawing from friends and family, so you don't call home as often, just talking becomes uncomfortable or unbearable or just difficult to do, and you start to perhaps think about suicide or hurting other people. So your irritability becomes aggression. So this is when you start and you want to look at seeking some professional help. And here are some resources that are specifically available 24/7 and easy to access for all students, because most of these resources are open 24 hours. And some are marked where they're open less, but Good to Talk is a wonderful and confidential support service, again, focused on post-secondary students who are in Ontario, Nova Scotia. We have the Black Youth Helpline that is available to all youth and specifically responds to the need for the Black youth. And it's a position resource to promote access to professional, cultural appropriate services. And the Nashia Muslim Youth Helpline, again, is focused on supporting young Muslims and receiving immediate, anonymous, and confidential support. Now I'm going to pass it back to Nawara.
Thank you, Vince, for a thorough presentation on self-care strategies to overcome stress. Let's talk about the Orientation to Ontario program. So it is a bilingual program funded by Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship Canada, IRCC, and the Government of Ontario. This program has been designed to expedite and facilitate the settlement of newcomers to Ontario and help them make better informed choices. You can visit our website or you can contact us via telephone or by email. And we also have the International Student Connect program, which offers settlement information and orientation to international students pursuing a post-secondary education in Ontario. The Ontario Ministry of Children's and Community and Social Services is funding the International Students Connect project to provide support to international students and their families. You can contact us via email or by telephone, or you can visit our website to access all the ISC resources. Cont'd Immigrant Services is a community-based multicultural agency with 18 locations in Toronto, the region of Peel, and York region. Cont'd provides services in more than 60 languages. Last year, over 40,000 individuals, newcomers, and refugees received assistance in the Greater Toronto Area. Cont'd Immigrant Services also manages the O2O and the IEC programs. Want to thank you once again, Vince, Pietro Paolo, for collaborating with us and for helping us develop these mental health webinars for newcomers and international students. Thank you, and everyone, and have a great day.